We can now process this part with the installed Haas post, and we'll see if there's any difference between the mill default and the new Haas machine. Okay, at first glance, the first few lines, there's a few differences we can see. I think the program number is looking a little bit different now. We don't have 4 zeros, we just have 1 0. Not a huge difference, but it's just a visual cue to tell you that something has been changed. I'm still not seeing a work offset getting output, no G54 in there. That could be a bit of a problem. And notice all this stuff in here. This is all new. We're not getting that helical motion getting output right now. I'm pretty sure our Haas machines can handle it, so that's something we're going to want to fix. And scrolling down to the end of the post, we're at 30,000 lines now from what we were previous, about 20,000. Most likely due to the fact that our helix motion is not actually happening in a G2 or G3. But again, I would like to see a G54 in here. I would like to see some helix motion in here. And there is one more code that is useful on Haas machines, and that is the G187 command. So G187 on the Haas machine enables you to set the machine into specific cutting modes. I believe 1 is rough, 2 is medium, and 3 is a finish. By default, your machine is probably set into mode number 2. And along with that roughing code, there is also a corner rounding value that can be specified. Again, I think default is 25,000, 0.025. So on a motion like this, basically what that does is it allows the machine, if it sees something sharp, a very sharp corner, if you're in a finishing mode, it will slow the feed rate down so it can make that sharp corner. If you're in a roughing mode where you want to feed at 300 inches per minute, doing a 90-degree turn is not going to happen. Think about your cutter as a race car. The less sharp you can make that corner, the faster you can get around it. So this setting G187 allows you to flatten out those corners, round them off, so you can get around those corners quicker. So if we're roughing, moving quicker is obviously the goal. So with that, we've got our Haas machine here. Let's go back into the machine definition. And I want to be able to turn this setting G187 on somehow. So we are going to go back into the control definition and make a few changes here. So basically everything in here is controllable for this machine and all of its options. What we would like to look at first is our arcs. So here currently helix support is turned off. I'm going to turn this on to all planes supported. Most Haas's that I'm aware of do support helical motion. So turning this on will reduce some of your G-code, make some better toolpath motions as well. Continuing on down, you could make some edits. This is one, whereas if you're getting into a file size limit on your machines, this is your sequence number output. You could turn this off, and that will turn off the output of the end line numbers in your G-code. It won't reduce the number of lines of code, but it will reduce the actual physical size of the file. So something to keep in mind there. So just toggling the output of sequence numbers. So what I'm after here, though, is the text. The text on the last tab. So all of this is currently just default parameter number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Default descriptions on all the parameters. If I right-click in here, I'm going to import. I'm going to import all sheets. And here's where I go and select that same post that came with my download, the generic Haas 3-axis mill post. Hit open. And now I have options as to what I actually want to import. So I'm after the generic Haas 3x mill information. I click OK. And notice these all get populated now with some information. So these are all specific settings for this Haas post. You can see here miscellaneous number 1. It's now got some settings for G54s, 92s. And miscellaneous 4, you can see the setting I was after, G187, and some information here. So I'm just going to click save, hit OK, hit save again here, OK again here. And this will update Yes, I want to update my currently active machine definition. And I'm going to go into the parameters again. Notice on the miscellaneous values page, we now have some, instead of miscellaneous integer 1, 2, 3, 4, we've now got actual information in here that came from the post about what we can do with these settings. So work coordinates, 0 is a G92 output, 2 is your G54s, etc. 3 is a G52, and 4, if you cursor over, you can see is both. I'm working with work coordinate system G54, so I want that to be a 2. And my G187, I want to go into a roughing mode, so I have to input number 1. If you don't put any, so this setting over here coincides with this G187. This is the corner rounding value that you can specify. I would suggest just leaving it at 0, and it will output the default corner rounding value based on what mode you've selected over here. After some trial and error, if you find different values work better for you, then obviously you can update these values in this field here with the operation. So G187 is turned on in a roughing mode, so I'll click OK. So unfortunately we have to rebuild the entire operation even though we've just made a few parameter changes. And now that that is all rebuilt, we can post out just that operation into G-code. And now we can have a look at the results of this. So everything's the same again, 1-digit program number. There's our tool 501. There is our G187 line. So now we're getting G187 P1E.05. So what's going on here is this is overriding the default rough/medium/finish cutting method into a P1, which is roughing. The corner rounding radius for this roughing mode is 50 thou. So that's the default value for roughing. Again, the default value of the machine, I believe it comes in the medium mode, and it's set at 25 thou, corner rounding. Keep in mind, this mode, G187, if you refer to your Haas manual, is canceled on M30s. I believe it also gets canceled on tool changes. I'll have to check into that though. So even though you got this turned on for this tool to rough with, I think if you do a tool change, it goes back to the default setting. So other than that, there we have our G54 now, which is kind of important. We want to make sure that we're machining our part where we've actually picked our part up. But beyond that, there is our helix motion happening now. So our G3 with an X, Y, and Z value. So that's going to reduce the amount of G code. We had 30,000 lines last time, and we're back down to 20,000, the same as we had before with the mill default. That was doing the helical entry motions. So we've, again, reduced our G code back to the way it was. We've got our roughing code turned on. And like I said, we're now using the Haas specific machine post. So we should get better G code for our Haas machine. And we're getting this code output now, which will enable this roughing code to run faster. So that's a common thing in these simulations. Is in Mastercam, it might say this operation will take an hour. You take it out to the machine, you run it, and it takes an hour and a half. Well, how come we're a half an hour difference? Most likely it's because of this. Whoopsie. Where your machine is slowing down to make a corner based on the motion that you're telling it to make. So using a value like this, you can speed up your actual machine running time. It's not that you're making the code run faster, it's just not slowing down as much. So that basically covers this video up. I think this part has been covered quite in depth as well. We've covered different toolpath methods. We've covered filtering of the toolpath to make the code smoother. And now we've covered posting out optimized G code based on the machine that we're actually running. So beyond cutting this part, I think we're all finished. And in the next blog, we'll move into a new topic.